Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable.
Revolution.
First, what is a revolution?
Revolution is the solution, hey.
The motive of a revolution.
Well, now,
The objective of a revolution.
be televised.
And the result of a revolution. And the methods used in a revolution.
I know you know. Put my gun away. Never gonna put my gun away. Put my gun away. See the mob, you better run away.
This generation of Americans has already had enough, more than enough, of war and hate and oppression.
Hello, Internet. Thank you for joining me for this random Monday night live stream. Normally we do a stream on Sundays, but had to postpone because I live in the mountains and I get power outages, that sort of thing. Tonight's going to be a cool conversation. We have all heard about the great Beagle rescue operation that was going on out there in Wisconsin, I believe, at Ridglan Farms. And I have a special guest that was part of that rescue operation, and I'm very happy that you took the time to join me tonight. So without further ado, here is Dean. Dean, thank you so much for joining me, man.
What's up, Michael? Thanks for having me, man. Glad to be here.
No problem. I would have said your last name, but I didn't want to butcher it. How's your last
Everyone
name?
butchers it. Dude, the police, that is like their favorite question when they ask me in jail. They're like, how do you say that name, right?
Can I try? Can
please.
I try before you say it? All right. So Wierzykowski?
That's really close. That's an A. It's not an A plus, but it is an A. I will say that. It's Wierzykowski.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
Oh, good.
Well, again, thank you so much for joining me. You've been a busy man lately.
It's been a whirlwind of a week, man. I almost say I'm almost tired of winning. That's how much has been going on. I mean, I think it was, I guess today is Monday, right? And it was I think 2 Tuesdays ago that I was in jail and I was released on $10,000 bail because a court commissioner ruled me dangerous. And it was wild because that day, that was my 4th day in jail, right? And the court had essentially, in many ways, cleared the docket to get to us nonviolent puppy rescuers, because they were so concerned, right? Our hearing, I think they heard 40 other inmates that day in Dane County Jail who were all scheduled to be heard by a judge to determine whether they're a flight risk or a dangerous criminal for the community. And almost everybody else was let out basically scot-free on a signature bond saying, just sign a little piece of paper promising you'll show up to court and you're good to go. And then they hit us, 4 animal rescuers, with about $10,000 or $20,000 bail for each of us because they were so scared of what we were doing to the industry.
Well, yeah, you're definitely ruffling some feathers, but fortunately, you got the attention of some pretty big names, man. And you had this post go ultra viral, 1.4 million views. I'll just read. It's you know what? I'm just gonna play the clip really quick because it's such a cute little clip, and it's only 24 seconds. So
Yeah,
let me share my screen here. All right, go over this. This is a rudimentary show here, Dean. So,
love it, man.
All right, so this clip. Oh, you know what? I shared the wrong one. Let's go to this one. All right, so you shared this clip. You said, breaking, the first 300 Ridgeland Beagles touched grass for the first time today. They stepped outside and looked at the sun. Many are playful. Some are scared. All are learning the world can be safe. Today they are free. And this just touched the hearts and minds of so many people because you shared this adorable little clip here. Look at them. It's so the.
Hey, look at you. Look at you.
He looks a little in shock.
They're beagles, man, of all dog breeds.
Yeah, they're sweet animals, man. They're really beautiful creatures.
Yeah, and it's so. Before we get into your backstory, because I want to know like how you got into this, but one of the things that I really like about this story is the fact that it's the first thing I've seen in years that has bridged the political divide. You've got people on the right, people on the left. Everyone supports this. Everyone that loves dogs, and it's like people putting their differences aside and all supporting this. And it's kind of awesome, man. It is like, you should give yourself a pat on the back, obviously, for a lot of things, but that by itself, like, no politics here. Let's just save the dogs. And it's bringing everybody, like Laura Trump reposted this. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah. Did she do it? Wow, Laura got to it. Okay, I saw Nancy Mace did, and I think Tommy Lahren did. That's
Tommy
cool
Lahren did, yeah.
That's awesome, yeah. Well, Laura Trump, like, huge shout out to you, huge props. I'm grateful for everything that you've done for these dogs. Like, I'm not sure that they would have been freed, at least that this quickly, without you. So just hats off. Thank you.
So a lot of people don't know anything about this story. And I mean, I know very little. So first of all, how did you get into the whole rescue thing? And actually, how old are you?
I'm 29.
Oh, okay. Oh, geez. I would have thought you were
doing
something right, my friend.
Like, wow, I take care of my skin. That's right. It's a vegan diet, man. Vegan keeps you good.
All right, nice.
Yeah.
So how did you get involved with dog rescue organizations, and specifically this?
Yeah, man. Well, I've been an animal rights activist for the last 8 years. I've always been someone who cared about animals, and I just remember I grew up in a mixed Filipino family and in the suburbs of Los Angeles, and pretty quiet little, pretty conservative town. My childhood best friend's neighbor, his dad ended up being appointed to, I think, like the national security advisory of Donald Trump. And so just like a very, very quiet little town, but also just like very well connected. And it's remarkable that I kind of went from that, and I wanted to be a lawyer in college. I was studying pre-law, taking practice LSATs, studying for law school. And I was at Berkeley at the time, because I actually, before I got to UC Berkeley, I transferred from community college in Los Angeles, and I was like, I don't want to go to Berkeley. It's too liberal. It's too left for me. I don't want to do that, man. Because both of my parents are Trump supporters. I remember like Ron Paul was kind of like a household name for me growing up. I didn't know who Ron Paul when I was a kid, but I just was like, yeah, Ron Paul, right? That was kind of the vibe.
So I'm sort of a diehard libertarian. So that's kind of awesome that you mentioned that. Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. We should talk more about that, because one of my favorite people on this rescue was a man named Chris Holbrook. He was a state party chair of the Libertarian Party of Minnesota for about 5 years. And he messaged us saying like, hey, I want to join you with the dog rescue stuff. And he was incredible and led one of the felony level red teams that attempted to go into buildings and take dogs out. So again, so much political cross-pollination that I'm very happy about here.
Yeah, it's funny because there's the whole, libertarians are very, very particular about their private property, which I am, property rights. And thing is, like, I look at it, this is one of those gray areas where it's like, okay, this is a very nuanced situation. So how does the non-aggression principle apply? How does property rights apply? Because I mean, technically Beagles by the law are property of this company. But I mean, I look at it as if like parents are abusing their children, children are removed from the home at that point. And what they were doing to these Beagles is kind of horrific. And this didn't come on my radar until we found out about Dr. Fauci doing his thing with the horseflies. You heard about that?
Vaguely. Tell me more.
The same thing. It was Beagles. And I guess they use Beagles a lot because they're so docile, and it's horrible.
Yeah,
one of my best friends growing up had a Beagle, and they are like super emotional dogs. And the fact that they're doing this horrible testing. Well, essentially Dr. Fauci's people, I think it was the NIH, it was either them or I think it was the NIH, but they would essentially put a thing over their head and let horseflies loose in there, or fruit flies, and they would essentially like eat their faces while they're alive.
Yeah. I have heard about this, and it's absolutely horrific, right? And just there's no balance to what these testing industries will do to these dogs, man. And like, I mean, even with Ridglan Farms, which is the Beagle facility that we broke into and rescued Beagles from, they were doing things like injecting these dogs with the rabies, even though we already have an effective rabies vaccine, even for dogs, because companies they want in on the profits, right? They're like, oh no, I want my own rabies vaccine. So they're injecting dogs with the rabies and having them go insane, dehydrated, and these animals are going psychotic in these 2x4 foot wire cages for their entire lives. They never step outside. They never look up at the sun. And specifically, like you mentioned, like these are docile breeds. Specifically, we test on them because they don't fight back. They will love you and forgive you, and they will trust you. And we abuse that trust. And it is absolutely disgusting. And that's why we had to do everything we could non-violently to get them out.
Yeah, one of the best parts was after you guys rescued all of them, there's the videos and you see like the little tips of the tails start to wag, you know, and it's like, oh my God, these dogs are so resilient.
Yeah.
So what type of testing were they doing on these dogs? And is Ridglan Farms the actual test facility, or do they breed the dogs and give them to these horrible monsters?
It is both. It is primarily a breeding facility, and they also have a research facility on site. And so I guess I'll just start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Ridglan Farms is the second largest dog research and breeding facility in the United States, at least for now is, because it looks like they're about to shut down because of the agreements with Big Dog Ranch Rescue and Laura Trump. So hats off again. But it is hugely nationally significant, is one of the cornerstones of the biomedical pharmaceutical industry, especially with regards to animal testing. And dog testing is this big cornerstone of that industry. And so we investigated them in 2017. The group that I'm a part of, it's a loose coalition of different animal advocacy organizations, one of them being Direct Action Everywhere. And so some of their folks, including Wayne Shung, who is an animal rights attorney, was part of this initial investigation. And they went inside to document conditions, and they found animals who were in this concrete shed with these thin walls where you can hear them screaming from the outside of the facility, right? There's, I think, 2,000 or 3,000 dogs, at least at the time. And so you can just see like feces just kind of like piling on the grounds, and like they don't, because there's like a very small number of actual employees there. I'm not sure if there's more than like a dozen employees, right? And so do the math. There's 2,000 to 3,000 dogs. How much care could you possibly provide to that amount of dogs, right? And if you've ever owned a dog, right, it takes a lot of work, right? There's veterinary care. It's like hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a year in terms of the vet visits, the food that you provide for them, right? And so for those people to put thousands and thousands of these puppies in these industrial sheds where they don't even clean up after them, they just let their feces pile onto these rivets, these troughs on the floor that are supposed to take out the feces, but you can smell it when you go inside because they're just these concrete troughs. And these dogs are living in that for their entire lives. And so you walk in, and this is basically what the investigators saw. Like you walk in and there's just rows and rows and rows of dogs screaming in cages and spinning around. And you actually see like one dog in particular just is an example here where she'll be on this wire cage. Her feet were getting infected from what's called interdigital dermatitis, something like that, where like they're infected from the wire, and it's painful for her to even stand up, right? And so she's limping around, and at the same time spinning and going psychotic, because it's not just the physical pain, it's the psychological torment of being in this facility, right? Where it's like you're like in an insane asylum where you're surrounded by hundreds, if not thousands of other people who are also going insane. You're going insane. And so they're spinning around in what the industry calls its stereotypic behavior, which is when you can observe that an animal is behaving in a way that is not normal, that they're spinning around, they're constantly doing something over and over again, whether they're chewing at the bars or whether they're spinning around uncontrollably. And it's signs of psychosis. And so we are inflicting psychological and physical torment on these dogs. And so that's what they saw in 2017. And they reported this to like the district attorney, to the regulatory agencies. And basically since then, the authorities, they did respond to the animal rescuers, but they didn't respond by investigating criminal cruelty. They investigated the rescuers themselves and decided to prosecute them. And so folks like Paul Darwin Picklesheimer and Wayne Shung and Eva Hamer were charged with felony burglary charges for taking a sick puppy, Julie, out of her cage and bringing her to the vets. And so the world, or the nation, was riveted by this story. They wanted Julie to be safe, right? The public wants these dogs to be okay, and they want criminal animal cruelty laws to be enforced. But the authorities are so tied up with the industry that they decided to bring charges against rescuers instead, kicking off a multi-year prosecution between 2017, they were prosecuted all the way up, I believe, through 2024. And they were going to trial on these felony charges, facing several years. And on the day of trial, the prosecution dropped all of their charges completely. And they just walked away scot-free. And so they knew, they dropped him because the public was so outraged by what was going on. And because this is very common in these animal rescue cases that we do, when you remove an animal, you're actually you're subjecting yourselves to higher criminal charges, right? It's no longer trespass. Now you can be called committing a theft, maybe grand theft in this case, because these are like biomedical grade animals. They're on the market price of maybe $1,000 to $3,000 each for these purebred research beagles. And so I think they might have been facing felony grand theft charges, as well as conspiracy and burglary. And the prosecutors were so scared that evidence would be brought into trial of the conditions of these dogs.
Yeah.
But they said, we can't let a jury hear that the company was subjecting these dogs to infections on their feet so severe that they could barely even stand. And they knew that a jury would acquit them if they actually heard those facts. And so they just dropped the charges entirely to protect the reputation of the company.
Yeah, Discovery would have been a bitch on that one. So there's big money behind this. This is like would you say that this is like the pharmaceutical companies lobbying powerful politicians to go after you guys instead of investigating themselves?
This is huge, man. Yeah, I mean, the biomedical industry conducts tens of billions of dollars of business in Dane County, where Ridglan Farms operates, largely through the University of Wisconsin-Madison, through medical research. And so the biomedical industry is coming down very hard. One of my favorite facts, I will say, I've been called a terrorist by the biomedical industry. The National Association of Biomedical Research has issued a press release following our recent rescue efforts, calling for federal terrorism charges against me and other rescuers who were involved. So that's even after Ridgeland's local congressperson, Mark Pocan, came out in support of the rescuers and the activists and said, I will not help you stop people from breaking into your farm because I'm so concerned with what is documented happening to your animals. And so we are definitely splitting political forces against each other, where typically, courts and political officials are so beholden to these powerful moneyed interests, both direct through political donations, but also just like the informal sense of, I feel like it's just my job to protect the status quo, right? And they're scared vaguely of what will happen if they go against a multi-billion-dollar industry. But now even folks are going against it, and we're definitely causing some divides.
So a lot of people are kind of poo-pooing this because they're like 5 or 50 dogs or 500 dogs got left behind, and this is only the tip of the iceberg. Like the inhumane treatment's still happening. And it's like, yeah, but this is a win is a win. And
yeah, well, did you hear? There's 1,500 dogs who are getting out.
Right,
That's
right. But people are still poo-pooing it. So,
yeah,
I mean, this is only one place. Obviously, there's more places doing this sort of horrific treatment. So, what's next?
Yeah, for sure. And so for viewers who might not know yet, so the charges were dropped against the investigators on the eve of trial in 2024. And that's when activists went from the defense to the offense. And they said, we need to not just fight our own freedom, we need to fight for the freedom of the dogs. That's always what this has been about, but now they had a new opportunity to do so, right? And so they asked for a special prosecutor to be appointed for a local judge. And to everyone's shock, the judge actually did it, right? After years and years and years of being totally ignored by the local authorities, by the district attorney's office, by the local prosecutors, a local judge reviewed the evidence and said there is probable cause of felony animal cruelty at this facility.
That's
and
huge.
they actually found that the local prosecutor had refused to enforce, even though they said a reasonably prudent prosecutor would absolutely investigate what is going on here. And they appointed a separate prosecutor to intervene. And so that was a huge victory. But unfortunately, that special prosecutor, Tim Grunke, he did some stuff, but ultimately fell far short. He cut a sweetheart deal with the company, saying, I won't prosecute you if you agree to relinquish your breeding and sale license. Essentially, don't sell any more dogs to other companies, but you are allowed to continue testing on your own animals and breeding them yourself, right? And most importantly, this deal did nothing to protect the 2,000 ongoing victims of felony abuse who are there as of only weeks ago at Ridglan Farms, right? It's like if you're abusing a child in your garage, right? And someone says, "Hey, that needs to stop." And the prosecutor says, "Hey, don't worry. We told them they can't do this to a second child. It's totally fine," right? There is a victim of criminal abuse. And these prosecutors said, "I am turning my back on that victim." It is absurd. So that's why we said it's not enough that their breeding license is going to be relinquished on July 1st of this year. We have to go in and rescue those dogs. And so March 15 was our first of 2 rescue efforts where we went in with about 100 activists. And we just broke in. We exercised what we believe. And for real,
don't incriminate yourself too much on here.
I will absolutely incriminate. But let's love to talk about this, man. Let's go for it. Because on our heart of hearts, we believe that everything we did was 100% legal, both under just like Wisconsin statutory defenses, under like the necessity defense, but also under things like just like basic, the principle of equal protection under the law. We believe that if we look at animals seriously, that animals have inherent legal interests that are already recognized under the law, but they're being inconsistently recognized. In the same way that if you see a dog in a hot car, you break a window to save that dog, right? And that should be perfectly legal. And the law already recognizes that we need some flexibility, right? That if the law is too rigid, you need to be able to break a lesser law to prevent a greater evil or harm from occurring. And that is basically what the necessity defense exists for if you go to court to defend yourself. And so we're trying to apply this to animals. And the remarkable thing is that Wisconsin has already recognized a necessity defense for animals. There is a case in which a police officer saw a starving, emaciated horse on someone's front lawn and said that is not okay. And they walked onto the property and found even more horses who were being criminally abused, right? That officer had a case filed against him because he didn't have a search warrant, and was alleged to have violated the property owner's constitutional right against undue search and seizure, right? And so that is a very serious charge for a police officer to do that. But a court ruled that those horses had such fundamental rights that our legal system already recognizes that it overrided the search and seizure protections because this was an emergency situation. If there is an emergency, sometimes you just need to do what you have to do as long as you're being nonviolent and not making the situation worse. And so if that is literally what has been applied to police officers in the state of Wisconsin, we 100% believe we have the right to provide aid to an emergency situation of thousands of beagles who are being criminally abused at Ridglan Farms. And that's what we did.
So what's the justification behind the testing that they're doing in the first place? Like, why is this needed? What are they testing them for? Or what are they experimenting on them for? What are they doing?
Yeah, well, the medical industry, they say this is necessary for the health of humans and animals. And Ridgeland will say in press releases that something of 90% of their experiments actually benefit human pets, right? Like dogs, like our dogs and beagles at home, right? And so stuff, I don't know, like maybe testing food or, evidently like in rabies vaccines. One thing that they've done to these dogs is just commercial laundry detergent. They have force-fed commercial laundry detergent down the throats of these beagles because God knows that we need another brand of commercial laundry detergent, right? And so if you look at animal testing regulations, there is some language about, is this necessary, right? Are you inflicting the minimal amount of invasive pain on an animal in order to produce the results that you need? But it doesn't talk about what kind of results those typically are. Like, is this necessary for human health? Is this something that we've already researched, right? Those are just not questions that these scientific regulations really ask, at least in a meaningful way. And so they just force feed commercial laundry detergent to these dogs.
What I don't get is if you had a breeder, a dog breeder, an animal rescue, or a dog shelter that was putting dogs through even a fraction of the stuff that these beagles were put through, the people would be shut down and prosecuted. So, like, I can't I can't square this. Like the commercial laundry detergent thing that you said. And like, do we really need, like, we got parvo vaccines, we've got flea and tick medication, we've got the heartworm medication. We've kind of got this all covered for dogs already. Like, what is it, because of the new tick vaccine that Pfizer wants to come out with that's in phase 3 trials right now? Like, I can't understand why this is necessary.
Yeah, no, it's absurd, right? And this is ultimately just, if you think, like, I hate to say this, man, but it's just about money and power, right? What is the political, decision makers really listen to? It is these companies that make billions in dollars doing things like shoving commercial laundry detergent down the throats of these dogs, and there's just too much power in that system.
So, did you actually physically go in and get Beagles?
Absolutely.
Walk me through that. So good. So walk me through that.
Yeah,
I mean, what was that like?
And so I was I was a red team lead, and so I had a team of about 7 volunteer rescuers who entered the facility. And so we walked in with crowbars and angle grinders, and my team didn't have angle grinders, but other teams absolutely did, because we had to cut through the barbed wire fence to access the property. By the time we actually got to the buildings, they knew we were coming, and so I think they reinforced their doors with like these 1/4 inch like metal steel metal grates, and so it was really difficult to get through. And it's really dramatic because we're on the farm, right? There's about 100 of us trying to access like these 3 different large breeding facilities that are very, very large. And so there's like alarms blaring in the background. There's a rainstorm coming down on us, and like the angle grinders are not working. We're not getting into the buildings. And then finally, someone realizes there's kind of like this vent that they see, and someone takes a sledgehammer, and breaks that vent, the fan, and someone crawls through, opens the door, and that's when activists flood in, get as many dogs as they could, and they walk out. And that day we rescued 22 Beagles from Ridglan Farms, and those dogs made it all the way to safe and loving homes.
So what was the condition of the Beagles, and how did they react to you guys? Were they like, my rescuers are here? Did they just not know what was going on?
Yeah, they're unique creatures, man. Some of them, they're just like so loving and trusting. And I held a Beagle. There was someone who was tired carrying a dog, and I took them from them. And it's like, we're in the rain. I could feel their hair just being soaked on my forearms, right? And she just kind of melts into my arms. Like, this dog, you've lived your entire life in a cage, and you're just, I don't know if she knew that I was there to help her.
She did.
Or if that was just new nature, right?
No, she did. It's like, that's the thing about dogs. So, I mean, not to make any of this about me, but I just adopted a Great Dane puppy. Her name's Molly. She's 9 months old. And my friend runs a rescue organization out of Southern California called Healing Hounds. And my pit bull that I have back here behind me, she grew up with a lab Great Dane mix named Molly. And my friend hits me up. She's like, guess what I got? And she sends me pictures, and it's a black Great Dane named Molly. And she's like my old dog reincarnated, but she came from a super bad environment in South Central LA, where she was kept in the backyard. She didn't even have a leash. She was super underfed. Like, she never saw other people, never saw other dogs. So when she took her in, like, Molly actually tried to bite her. And when I took her home, the first few days was like, everything was terrifying to her. And that's just with a dog that was mistreated in a backyard. She shows signs of someone being abusive to her for sure. Like, I couldn't do sudden movements around her in the beginning, but I mean, she went through a fraction of what these Beagles went through. And Beagles specifically are I think they're similar to like French bulldogs in this way, where they're just super sensitive dogs. They're like emotional dogs, and like you said, they're super docile, but it's just insane how they can go through everything that they went through, and then you pick it up and you probably saw like a little bit of a tail wag, and oh man, this is why it's also like bridging the political divide, because it doesn't matter what your politics are. It's just like, if you love dogs, you love dogs. And just a lot of people don't know this stuff's going on, man. So like, thank you so much for not only rescuing the Beagles, but spreading awareness, because people don't realize how many more of these types of organizations are out there.
Yeah, that's a good question. To my knowledge, there's no one else who's breaking into farms, at least in this way. There are folks who do, like the animal liberation fronts, and to a degree, PETA has done this over decades, getting animals directly into, like, going into labs and just taking them out.
Yeah, but I mean, how many other like horrific labs are there like this? Like
the
Ridglan
labs.
Farms. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the next one is MBR in upstate New York. It is the largest beagle testing and breeding facility in the United States. They have, I believe, 15,000 dogs at my last count. It is a huge, like, it makes Ridgeland Farms look like a small family operation in comparison.
We need to get some like special forces guys on your teams now. What is it, MBR?
Sign them, send them my way, man. Let's recruit them. We're going to organize them. I will say, I am currently facing 12 years in prison on felony charges from the district attorney because they are scared of. They've identified me as one of the leaders of our recent rescue effort, in which 1,000 people returned to Ridgeland Farms to get them all out. We tried to enter, but we were stopped with incredible police brutality. We were tear gassed and pepper sprayed over several hours. And I arrived on site with a reporter with me. She was wearing a press badge and a press vest, right? And immediately a riot cop walks up to both of us, just pepper sprays us directly in the eyes. And so we walk through a cloud of tear gas and try to recover for about 15 minutes before we both say, look, we need to go back and help those dogs, right? And so for the next 2 hours, like, she and I were walking with grandmothers back into clouds of tear gas to save these tortured puppies. And it was one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever seen. And it gave me so much faith in our species because people are looking for hope with everything going on nowadays. And to see just grandmothers getting shot with rubber bullets, right? And having welts, like visible red welts on their body, and then them wiping the tears off and going back because there were dogs in there who needed help.
And I love this too, because this is direct. This is actual direct action. This isn't like walking around with picket signs and, saying, not throwing any shade, but no kings and just like setting up signs on overpasses. You guys are actually getting shit done. And no, I love this. And I could tell that this is like an emotional thing for you. So, like really kudos.
We're very proud. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Good. And I mean, I imagine this is only the start, right?
This is the start. I will say, look, I'm facing felony charges right now. My bail I am not allowed to go anywhere near not allowed to go anywhere near Ridgeland Farms or the town of Blue Mounds. They banned me from an entire town, which is absurd. Just think about like the First Amendment's right to assembly constitutional violations of that, right?
Yeah.
I have not been convicted of a crime, and yet I'm not allowed within an entire town, right?
They got like a restraining order against you for the whole town.
Something like that. But I will say I am not banned from upstate New York, nor Marshall Bioresources, where 15,000 puppies are. And so I absolutely plan to be part of the next rescue efforts. And if the state wants to lock me up, I am so excited to fight them in court and argue that animals are fundamental legal persons who have rights that these courts cannot take away. So I'm excited to continue this rescue work.
How can people, if people want to get involved with this, how can people get involved?
Got a website, man, savethedogs.io. Yeah. Go to it,
Okay.
Sign up, join us at the next rescue, and you can walk in with us with a beagle in your arms. She needs your help.
Is that one of the links you sent me?
It is.
Okay, good. It's in the description of this episode.
Yes.
Oh, and incredible. Yeah, there's so many other things that I want to ask you about. So yeah, so walk me more through. You guys got in. You saw the vent. You get in there and just you start popping cages open. How many dogs were there? I mean, how did you guys get all those damn dogs out of there?
Yeah, because it's such a blur to me, man. I don't even remember how many dogs I saw, but we actually we got 27 out of cages. I will say that we got them out, but police and industry intercepted us, and so those 5 pups didn't make it all the way to homes, and they were actually just brought back to their abusers at the farms. And so there were 5 pups who had a taste of freedom. They smelled fresh air for the first time in their lives. They held someone who was who they could trust, and that was broken, and they were returned back to the farm. So those stories, when it's so abstract, right? When you think, oh, there's this big biomedical industry that tests on tens of thousands of dogs, right? But when you actually hold a beagle in your arms and you feel the wetness on her fur, You can smell her in the rain, and you can see her eyes just looking at you. You know that this is an individual, and this is an individual who has a soul and deserves protection under the law. So we need to fight for those creatures.
So 1,500 ended up being freed?
After some negotiations, yes, that is correct. And so on the second rescue effort, we intended to get all of them out, just get basically one person for every single dog and just carry every single dog out of the farm. But we just did not expect to be met with such police violence. We thought, look, they can't arrest us all. There's only 800 police officers in all of Dane County. And if we show up with 1,000 or 2,000 people, they just cannot stop us all, right? That logic does not apply when they have rubber bullets and tear gas. And I'm just shocked that I feel naive in retrospect, looking at what they've done in ICE demonstrations, right? And just like, peaceful protests around America. But I just did not think that they would tear gas and rubber bullet against peaceful grandmothers trying to rescue criminally abused puppies. But clearly they did. But it was that act from the authorities that outraged so many folks and led to people like Laura Trump saying, I need to help those dogs. And so that, my friend Aiden Kangyoku, he wrote a blog saying, we got our asses kicked. It worked. And, that is what helped us get the dogs out. So other organizations reached out to Ridgeland in the midst of all the attention and cut a deal to bring home at least 1,500 of the dogs. And my understanding is they're working to get all 2,000 of the dogs out and shut down Ridgeland for good. And so it looks like those dogs are going to be okay.
Good. Is there any of this nonsense going on? You're from San Francisco, right? Well,
I'm in San Francisco.
Oh, you're back right now?
I live in SF, but right now I'm actually in Wisconsin. I flew back today because I want to go volunteer and just help get some puppies out. So
that's freaking awesome. So is there any of these crazy facilities in California?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
That's, I guess, something that we're doing right out here.
Yeah.
Okay.
California is a very brutal place for animals, I got to say. I would even, when you look at the factory farming industry in California, there are hundreds of millions at least of animals, chickens in factory farms and slaughterhouses who are being routinely scalded alive in slaughterhouses. And we like to say that, California has animal cruelty laws that are being routinely violated, and they deserve protection too, just like these dogs. But that's a separate topic, but that is ultimately the fight that we plan to fight.
No, I mean, let's go there. So I'm a meat eater, but sure. I hate factory farming. It's horrific. And specifically in California, the factory farms are the ones that get all the protection. They have all the big lobbyists behind them. And then you've got like free range cattle ranchers that allow cows to live like a good life. They go out every day, they graze, and they're the ones that are struggling. And, those are the ones that are actually doing things. What's the word? Not cruelly, the opposite of cruelly. And those are the ones that are having a hard time surviving in California. But
yeah, these big industries are absolutely the worst offenders by what they do to these animals. I think is if you ever drive up on the 5 highway, which I'm sure you have on the way to San Francisco, right?
Oh, yeah.
You can smell it. You can smell.
Yeah.
Gosh, Harris Ranch.
Harris Ranch. Yep.
Harris Ranch. I believe they have at any given time. There's over maybe 250,000 cows at that facility. You can smell them from the road, right? And just if you can smell them from the road, right?
Oh yeah, it's horrible.
How does it feel to be a cow? A mother cow on that facility, living her entire life and just embedded, surrounded by the feces, and not just herself, but of like hundreds of thousands of other cows. Right?
Well, they call those free range cows too, and they're not.
It is, and it's interesting too. Like we do see like this distinction between kind of like these factory farms and these small family farms, but also they're often in the same supply chain. Harris Ranch, I believe, is actually a finishing lot, which means that cows are sent there from other farms where they are fattened up before slaughter. And so the cows that you see on the highway who seem to be living happy lives out in the fields, they're often sent over to places like Harris Ranch.
Yeah, that's why the grass-fed and finished is such a crucial thing to look on your meat. Like my buddy Dale, well, my buddy, yeah, I met him on Twitter, and we become kind of we chat a lot. He runs a ranch up in Oregon. Not runs a ranch, it's his house, and he has all sorts of animals, but he's got like 6 to 10 cows, something like that. But they're like his pets, He plays with them, and they chase him around on his little tractor, and like he loves them, but they will get eaten. So that is sort of a dicey subject, but again, it's
weird world, man. It's a weird world.
Yeah.
I'm sure that we have different views on how animals should be treated, but it sounds like he has a lot of respect for those animals, and that matters.
Oh, he loves them, and they have names, and he calls it cow posting. He plays with his cows. It's he's got beach balls for him and stuff, and he does funny videos. But
beautiful.
Yeah,
send me those videos. I'd love to watch them sometime.
His name's Dale Stark. Follow him on Twitter. He's a former A-10 pilot. He's a badass.
Right on, man. Those are cool. Those are cool machines, man. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
it is a gun with a plane, not a plane with a gun. So yeah.
Yeah. So back to the Beagles. What's happening to them now? They're going to different rescues, or
they're getting out, man. I was just crying constantly over the weekend of joy when I think it was a few days ago that the first 300 Beagles were taken out of Ridglan Farms, and they were brought onto our local ranch and just walked outside and touched grass for the first time in their lives. And you see them just coming out of these cages and smelling, and they're kind of like scared, right? When they haven't seen this before, and then they kind of light up and they start running around, right? They're jumping and playing. It is so beautiful. And one of the ironies here too is like, I mean, if we didn't factory farm these dogs, there wouldn't be so many cute Beagles running around, right, on this field. But it is beautiful to see them getting out. And so those 300 dogs were the first. And just day after day, hundreds more are coming out, and they're trying to get all 1,500 out, I believe, within the next week. And they're going to go to places like Big Dog Ranch Rescue in Florida, which I believe is taking 500 dogs, and other rescues around the country. And it is so beautiful because they are literally putting dogs on propeller planes and flying them around the country, right? And so for these dogs, like the transformation here, that they have been treated like trash their entire lives. They didn't even have the dignity to have their own place to defecate safely, right? And now for them to be getting a first-class flights to places like, rescues in New York and Florida and wherever they're going, it shows the dignity and treatment that these dogs have always deserved, and it's beautiful that they're finally getting it.
Well, it's just horrible. The description of, like, I know what happens to the dog's paws when they're walking on the wire. Like, they can't even put pans in there. Like, that's the bare minimum of what you can do. And again, if a rescue organization or a shelter or a backyard breeder was doing any of this kind of stuff, they'd be put in jail. And like, how is it any different?
Yeah, it's absurd. It's absurd. Yeah.
Well,
and that's why this upcoming trial is going to be so important, that it does look like folks are going to trial. I may be going to trial. I think it's like maybe 50-50 they drop my charges. I really hope that they don't, because I want this opportunity. But Wayne Shung, the organizer of these rescue efforts, they're going after him really hard. In his preliminary hearing, the prosecutors were unrelenting, and they argued that this man is a dangerous criminal who must be locked up. And they were denying all evidence of animal cruelty from the courtroom, right? And this is an absurd constitutional inconsistency. Like, when you are having your freedom at stake, you have a right to defend yourself and present a full and complete defense and say, this is what I did and why I did it, right? And now we can't even talk about the animals who are literally the reason we're going into these facilities, right? And so that's how scared the prosecution is, and they are going very hard after people like Wayne. So it's going to be a very dramatic battle to see who's going to win. Is it the authorities and the puppy abusers, or is it just ordinary people trying to protect the pups?
So how are you guys funding your legal defense?
Yeah, there's a lot of generous support around the country. A lot of it is pro bono. We have pro bono attorneys, and even just people advising and consulting with us, like Kristen Stilt, who is a professor at Harvard Law of Animal and Property, the preeminent professor of Harvard, the preeminent professor of Animal and Property in the United States. We have just a very high-powered legal team with Denver University. They have a pro bono animal activist legal defense clinic where they're also joining us. So we're very confident, but we also always need more support, right? Because these rescues are not cheap. And so if you want to help us fund more puppy rescues, go to savethedogs.io.
So if you had the
also
ear...
on that note, I will say, I do plan to self-represent in court.
Absolutely.
I'm
very
a lawyer.
excited. Awesome.
I'm excited for it. And it's just, I actually, I will be self-representing as a non-lawyer. I do not have a law degree. And a lot of folks think I have a law degree just because I've attended so many of these trials. But when you're self-representing, you're able to present a defense much more completely than if you're represented by an attorney, because attorneys, they often, like if you have like a local public defender, or even just like a criminal defense attorney, they have years of experience and reputation with the courts, right? And so they're often kind of scared to make novel legal arguments such as animal personhood, which we absolutely intend to bring up, right? And so that's one level, but it also just says like the jury gets to hear from you more as an individual. And there's more leeway for self-representing defendants because they're not as trained in the specific aspects of criminal law. And so I'm going to use that leeway to my legal rights and just say, look, this is who I am. This is what I did. I'm fully open about it. And this is why I did it. I believe this is legal. And if you agree, please acquit. But if you disagree, then so be it. And I'm going to use those consequences and potentially time in jail to show the country how broken our system is and the urgency of reform. So let's see what happens.
So if you had the ear of, say Congress, Pam Bondi, Harmeet Dillon, the Trump administration, what type of legislation, what laws would you want to see created surrounding this?
We need to end animal testing. Animal testing is an outdated, archaic industry that needs to go. It was started, I believe, in the early 1900s. Like our current laws around like federal requirements for animal testing in order to approve new drugs and pharmaceuticals often date back to like these early 1910, 1913 era laws that the industry has built an entire practice around and has incentivized to maintain, but is no longer essential. I believe 90% of animal testing results fail to predict outcomes in humans. And we now know that we have more accurate methods, from synthetic, basically organ on a chip kinds of synthetics, to everything like AI, which can now look at our archives and just draw conclusions without having to actually test on another animal. So we have the technology to end animal testing now and support human and animal health. It's just a matter of getting it done.
So you want to end it altogether. I love it.
We need to end it.
Yeah. And I mean,
it starts with the Beagles. And I believe people like,
it starts with what?
The specifics. It starts with the Beagles and the dogs. And so if we can get dog and cat testing ended in the US in the next year, that is a fantastic victory that we can celebrate.
Yeah, there's like these archaic methods they use for like the rattlesnake vaccine, for example. You know how that one's made?
I don't. No, tell me.
They literally let horses, I don't know if they inject them with rattlesnake venom, and the horses can handle rattlesnake bites. So they take the antibodies from the horses that have been injected with rattlesnake venom, and that's your vaccine.
Yeah, that's why we get it. Yeah, and it's right, and I will say I do think that there are some animal tests that do yield human benefits. I want to be like upfront about that. And even so, we have to ask, when does science go too far? When is it okay to hold somebody down and pin them on a laboratory table where they are attempting to kick and scream, and you insert a knife into their chest, opening up, revealing their organs as they're screaming in pain, to surgically move around their insides to try to create something that animal will never see the benefits of? If that were to happen to my dog or to my family member, I'd be outraged and say, no, the world cannot rest on my loved one being tortured against their will. And we have to ask whether it is okay within us as a species, within our ethics, to do this to tens of thousands of animals across the country just for dogs, if not the millions of animals in laboratories. And just, we test on animals because they're different from us. We also test on them because they're similar to us. They are similar to us enough to say that what we do to them can teach us something about ourselves. And so we have to ask, when do we draw the line of whether torture is okay?
Right. I mean, if you want to build a deck on your house, you got to go to a city council committee. You have to justify the reason for why you want to build the deck on your house. You can't just build one. But these giant pharmaceutical companies with massive amounts of money and lobby groups behind them don't need to justify the animal testing that they're doing at all. And I mean, in theory, you could just get some sadistic person in there that just wants to do horrible shit to animals, and they could just say, "Oh, we're doing animal testing." Meanwhile, you got some psychopath in there just slaughtering dogs. So if there's sort of any sort of legislation that was passed, if it was instead of just, I mean, if you couldn't get just a flat out ban on animal testing, at least have to have some sort of justification. Like, I want to test this drug. This drug potentially could solve this problem, and this is the type of testing that we want to do. And then it should have to be reviewed by some sort of committee, and give them more red tape. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. And I will say too, a lot of these regulations and laws already are on the books. I believe that a regulator or experimenters have to submit the reasons for what they're going to experiment for.
And they're just
my
rubber
understanding
stamped.
that a lot of it is rubber stamping and lack of enforcement, right? Exactly in the Ridgeland case in our size, right? Like, animal cruelty is illegal in the state of Wisconsin. The regulatory authorities actually found criminal violations there.
Right.
The Wisconsin Department of Trade, the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection, DATCAP, found 311 animal welfare violations at Ridglan Farms and actually referred them to the district attorney's office for criminal prosecution. And so there is literally violations of the law happening, and still these companies just skirt accountability. And so even if no new regulation is passed, if we were to fully enforce the laws currently on the books for animals, we would see a revolution in how animals are treated in this country. And so I urge people to raise hell to your district attorneys and your county district attorney who is accountable to you as a local politician. Tell them to enforce animal cruelty laws wherever you are, especially if you are in a place like upstate New York with Marshall Bauer resources where animals are being abused.
Well, as a libertarian, I hate using the power of the state for stuff, but in this case, it's a bit different. And this seems like it needs to be more federal. So I would love for this to get Thomas Massey's attention. If there's somebody in the federal government that would actually push for some sort of legislation that would, nationally protect these animals, I think Thomas Massey would be the guy. Maybe Rand Paul as well. Yeah. So,
dude, I'd love to get in touch with Rand Paul, man. Dude. Let's get in touch with Chris, our boy from Minnesota, and get in touch with Rand Paul. Rand Paul has been a hero for the animals. I forget the specifics, but he has spearheaded, I believe, animal testing regulations to protect creatures.
He's the one that brought up the Dr. Fauci stuff that Dr. Fauci was doing. I mean, not directly, but this is horrible shit. All right, are any of these beagles up for adoption?
I believe so, man. And I laugh because I'm not allowed to be part of this, at least in certain ways, right? I am volunteering here in Wisconsin to help with dogs, I believe, out of the staging areas and later stages in the process. But I'm definitely not allowed to go near Ridgeland Farms for legal reasons. And also, I don't think they like me at the moment, which I will say.
Good.
I do hope that we can come together at some point. We have a saying that we have no enemies, only future friends. And even though we might be on opposite teams right now with different goals, I believe that at the end of the day, we're all human beings who have the same desires for dignity and respect. And I would love to just sit down and share a meal sometime with people who are not yet on the side of not torturing puppies. So, yeah.
I can't express enough how powerful what you just said is, because I'm 42 and I've never seen our country divided in the way that it is. And, I'm a conservative libertarian, but I'm in California and I live in the Santa Cruz Mountains. I'm surrounded by leftists, and I'm also a trail runner. So I'm
very impressed with you, man. You're holding it down out there.
Well, it's not like I don't go out trying to start fights, and start arguments. Like, my thing is I'm a trail runner as well. I'm a trail runner. I love dogs. if you're a trail runner and you love dogs, I don't give a shit what your politics are. Let's go run a trail and bring our dogs and like go to the dog beach. You know, like there's so many things that people have in common that politics have nothing to do with, but it's like everybody has made their identity politics now. And the fact that you are, you know, doing actual actions that are bridging the political divide, having people like, you can disagree on stuff all you want, but it's like, oh, the left disagrees on, or the left feels a certain way about this issue. The right feels a certain way about this issue as well. Good. Let's attack this issue together. And like these are the types of things that bring the political divide back together when you find common ground, a common cause that, okay, we're both on the same page about this particular issue. We don't need to agree on anything else. Let's attack this particular issue. And that's why what you're doing is so powerful right now. Like, I don't think I don't, well, I'm not going to say what you think, but I don't know if you appreciate like the power of what you guys are doing right now.
Really, I believe in this. And I think these animals have something to teach us that is bigger than just this specific issue. I think, there's people ask me all the time, why do you focus on animals? Right. And the short answer is animals are the biggest victims in history. They just are. When you look at the scale and severity of suffering, there are more animals in cages right now than human beings on the planet. And so we need to stop this kinds of abuse. And so we can disagree on what the moral implications of that are, right? What is the moral weight of a chicken relative to a human being? But in terms of objective, scientifically verified suffering, there is more suffering in laboratories and slaughterhouses in this country than there is probably of all human suffering on the planet. So it's huge. But that's a short answer of why I focus on animals. But the broad answer is that I think this just touches on something fundamentally deeper in who we are, that when we exercise our power, not just to protect ourselves, but the powerful, but to protect the most powerless in society, that just, it's a flex of some of the most important instincts as we are as a species. And that includes just our compassion to people on the street, right? Our neighbors, right? And so, I don't know. I'm not a saint. I get mad at all kinds of political folks, you know, left and right. You know, I live in San Francisco. I think there's certainly excesses of all political persuasions, right? But this rescue is reminding me how important it is to forgive even folks like Sheriff Calvin Barrett, who is trying to throw me in prison right now and is actively part of my prosecution. I would like to, you know, have some kind of coming together with folks like Calvin Barrett. So I agree with you, brother. Let's do it.
I need to talk to my my district attorney friend out in Yolo County, Jeff Reisig, and see what he thinks about this whole situation. See if we can get you some backup from the California front. And and like animals, dogs particularly, they don't know deceit. They don't know how to lie to you. They don't care what your politics are. If you give them snacks and belly rubs and take them on a walk, they love you. And like that's sort of like the things we can learn from dogs is that, you know, a lot of this shit just doesn't matter. It just doesn't freaking matter. Like there's so much beautiful shit in the world to appreciate, and that's what we can learn from animals. And so I love your passion. I love you know, how steadfast you are on this issue. And I mean, you're putting yourself in legal and physical danger when you're doing this. So, you know, kudos to you. Like really just long distance hug, man. I really appreciate it. Really do.
Right on. Right back at you, brother. Yeah. Thank you for having me on the show, man. And just all your energy and care for animals. I see it coming out, and your care for just, you know, basic human dignity, right? Human beings, right?
I'm not doing a fraction of what you're doing, but maybe I will now. So you know what? I'd love to have you. I want some updates from you with, I mean, this is just the beginning. So I'd love to have you on as maybe a reoccurring guest. If I have some specific questions, I'll reach out to you on Twitter. I got your number now. What are your socials? Where can people find you? How do people donate to the cause? All that good stuff.
Yeah, well, you can follow me right here. I'm going to point to this, right? Dean Guzman Wyrzykowski. That's my name on Facebook, Instagram. Send me a message. Add me on Substack. I do have a newsletter called Urban Animal where I try to go deeper into issues and just kind of like the human experience, right? My last post was actually published from jail, which was fun. My lawyer transcribed it over the phone and posted on my Substack as I was locked up. So I try to get pretty real about stuff on there. So give me a follow at urbananimal@substack.com. And yeah, ultimately, most importantly, go to savethedogs.io to sign your support and be part of the future rescue efforts at places like Marshall Bioresources, so we can get those 15,000 puppies out of criminal abuse and hopefully end all animal testing together. So sign up, savethedogs.io.
All right, cool. I got your X, I got your Instagram, I've got your Substack, and I've got a link to that organization you just said, all in the description. So you guys, make sure you go to the description, share this interview with people. People need to be aware of what's going on. And thank you so much for coming on, Dean. And we will be talking a lot again in the future, I'm sure.
Stay in touch, Michael. Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
All right. Thanks, brother. Wow. That was a powerful one, you guys. Mahanish, Yara, Bob Tiergarden over on Rumble. Sal, that's my buddy Sal in the chat. Los Gatos Linda, nice to see you. Northside over on Rumble, thank you so much for hanging out. Who else we got in here? So yeah, I mean, this is important shit that he's doing, and the fact that people are willing to put their futures in jeopardy to save dogs that are being abused, and the people aren't aware of the horrific treatment that's happening. I mean, a lot of us became aware of the whole Beagle situation during COVID, finding out about what Dr. Fauci was doing. And, this stuff's still going on and it needs to stop. So lobby your local state representatives, your assembly people, your state senators, send emails, reach out to Thomas Massey. Let's bombard everybody and let's get an end to all of this shit. Like laws that are on the books. You've got laws that contradict each other. You've got animal welfare laws, but then, that aren't superseding the checks and balances that these organizations are supposed to have to go through. They're not, if they have to justify the cause for the treatment, they're just getting rubber stamped, like Dean said. So there needs to be much more transparency on this. Potentially new laws passed. Even though I'm a libertarian, I hate seeing new laws, but when it comes to protecting animals, I mean, that's what we need to do. So I will be live again for sure next Sunday. I'll be uploading some other videos, but I think that's all I got for tonight. Sal, thanks for hanging out for the whole episode, man. I appreciate it. Yara, as always, thank you for hanging out for the whole episode. I'll hit you up when I'm down in SLO. Bob Tiergarden, you're the man. Hope you're getting your running in. Los Gatos Linda, thanks for hanging out. Northside, you're the man. I was careful. And yeah, I think that's all we got. So yeah, thanks everybody for hanging out. Before we get out of here, you know the rules. I got to tell a joke from the greatest book ever written, The Truth About Chuck Norris. This is the sequel to that book, Chuck Norris Cannot Be Stopped, courtesy of Danger, who was not in the chat tonight. He's got to be up too early. All right, you know the rules. I open the book. My eyes go to a joke and I read it. Chuck Norris joke of the evening. Hulk Hogan cried when he found out that his daughter Brooke had lost her virginity, but was really psyched when he found out that it was Chuck Norris. That's horrible. And on that note, stay Cali-based. See you on Sunday.